Hey guys, welcome back to Trek on the Tube. As you can see, I managed to put this video out before my big vacation, and I'm really happy I did because this was my favorite episode of Discovery Season 2 so far. Maybe not the best episode, but my personal favorite, that's for sure. We're talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 8, If Memory Serves. There's a lot to go over, especially in the Easter eggs department concerning the cage, even if, frankly, I don't know if all these things can still be considered Easter eggs. But as usual, first my thoughts and opinions. This episode ties in directly to both the cage and the original series in a way that, story-wise, enhances what we already know, and I love it. I love it when TV shows and movies do this kind of thing. This is what made Enterprise Season 4 brilliant, and you'll remember that no matter how negatively and beat down I felt after certain episodes of Discovery Season 1, I very much enjoyed the Mirror Universe arc and how it tied in the Defiant plotline from both the original series and Enterprise. Using story elements that already exist and building upon them, completing them, is not only satisfying for me as a fan, because I'm happy to see more layers and depth added to this universe I love, but it's also a great way to create a tangible connective tissue between different shows. Truth be told, I'm not a fan of the Telosian redesign. I happen to know some people who don't mind. I happen to know some people who do. Personally, I apply the same standards to every species we see on screen, which means to me, updating a species to have it meet modern requirements is fine, redesigning them is not. Or at least the show should provide some sort of explanation if they do decide to apply changes. Other than that, I don't really have any big issues with the episode. Ariam has these flashing red lights in her eyes again. It's not an issue from a story standpoint, sure, but it's just a little, I don't know, old to do that. We know Ariam is currently hacked or something. She's a threat to the ship for sure. We don't need a visual reminder. You don't need to hold the audience's hand like the X-Men movies did back in the early 2000s with Mystique. Burnham and Spock went to Talos 4 in a shuttle, and in my initial watch that seemed like a bit of a stretch to me, but after rewatching and thinking about it, as much as it does seem kind of ridiculous, explored space is much smaller in this time period, and also, we don't know what the distances are. We never really know what the distances are in Star Trek anyway, so I guess it works. The main, bigger problem, I suppose, is the fact that both the Discovery and the Section 31 ship enter the Talos star system and hold orbit above Talos 4, whereas in the original series it specified no Earth ship or no Starfleet ship has been there since Pike's original mission. So, was the data in-universe erased? Or did no one on the production team take the time to rewatch the Menagerie Parts 1 and 2 before writing this? Who knows? I'll leave it be for the moment because we all pretty much know that time travel will play a part in this season, and so we don't yet know how everything's going to be resolved. Maybe all this kind of stuff will be explained. Putting aside my personal feelings for the Telosian redesign, I gotta say that the makeup was great. So was the CG. The directing was also good. There were some interesting camera angles there with the turbo lift from the ceiling. But, I mean, too many lens flares. Too many lens flares for me. Why so many? It just adds more blue to the already very blue show. Anyway, the performances were on point, from Pike to Vina to Culber to Burnham. Even Georgiou didn't bother me here, astonishingly. I'm still not totally sold on Ethan Peck's Spock, but I'm willing to admit that has something to do with context. We haven't yet seen him in his right mind, shaved and in uniform. It's not Peck's performance that is the issue here, let's be very clear. I have nothing bad to say about his acting. It's just that I still have trouble seeing Spock with what we've currently been shown on screen. Side note, as much as I love the different stories of the episode, everything regarding Spock's time in the mental facility was pretty predictable, I reckon. Everything concerning Culber, on the other hand, was amazing. I still can't figure out why I already knew they were gonna kill him and then bring him back. I don't know where I heard that, how it was confirmed to me, but I already knew. So I was maybe more prepared than others to see that story unfold. Whatever the case, Culber remains my favorite character, tailed closely by Pike, and I love the story they're giving him. How he has to deal with coming back, with having a new body. Remember, he still has those memories of living in the mycelial network for months as well. For sure, he's going to be troubled. Tyler is still on the show as well, and as you know, I still can't figure out why, but if they're going to keep him around just so he can be Culber's punching bag, that's fine for me. This episode, more specifically the story of this episode, not only gave us insight and backstory into the Spock-Burnham relationship, which really helps Burnham fit into the Sarek family, but also added so much depth to the entire Pike-Talos plotline. I mean, in the cage, he's captured and placed by the Telosians as a mate for Vina. Vina, being badly wounded, can't leave the planet and lives her life with her physical appearance altered by an illusion of the Telosians. Of course, though, Pike ain't down for being a prisoner, so that's resolved and he leaves. And then many years later, in the original series, once the guy is older and disfigured, physically wounded after an accident of his own, Spock takes him back to the planet because he knows the Telosians will also help him, and he'll be able to live out his days with Vina. It is a nice solution, a nice sentiment, granted, but this episode of Discovery adds more credibility to the decision. It's now established that Vina has been living with an illusion version of Pike for years now, and clearly you can see she feels for him. But wait, he also feels for her. It's established now that the characters have a very strong bond, and so Spock's decision to take Pike back to Talos 4 in the original series has more weight. Having this extra information is awesome. Alright, that's enough. I enjoyed the episode, I liked all the tie-ins. We now move on to the Easter eggs and references, and for starters, let's go over the big stuff, everything the Cage related. The episode starts off with a previously on Star Trek that uses original footage from The Cage. This helps give context to some of the events that unfold later on. It's also a beautiful homage to the very first pilot of Star Trek. The computer aboard Spock and Burnham's shuttle goes over a brief history of the Telosians, already established in The Cage. Most things regarding the planet, like for example the atmospheric composition, the look of the Telosian caves, the plants, the rocky environment, are taken directly from The Cage as well, or at least are heavily inspired by. As you can see, the plants are very different once side by side, but the noise they make, if I'm not mistaken, is exactly the same. The Telosians are slightly different physically. I suppose it could work for all the secondary Telosians because in The Cage and Discovery they're listed as just Telosians, and maybe the species has variances, but this guy, this main dude, is listed in both episodes as the Keeper. So he's clearly the same guy, but with a different face. I'm not too keen on that, but the robes changing on the other hand, that isn't an issue for me. We change clothes all the time, why couldn't they? And also this Keeper guy, changing his bling works fine for me as well. We also see Vina, yet another character from The Cage. Some say she wasn't perfectly recast, she doesn't look too much like the original Vina. I would agree, but it doesn't bother me too much, especially considering the makeup was done to emulate the original. Vina is shown as disfigured, and though the extent of her wounds seem far less here than in The Cage, you'll notice that the scar and the burns are placed in the same spots, so that's awesome. Regarding her shoulder, maybe the Telosians just found a way to heal her, I don't know. Moving away from the Cage elements, Spock has been seeing visions of the destruction of the Federation. The 4 planets we see being destroyed, though it's not stated explicitly, are probably supposed to be Earth, Vulcan, Andoria, and Teleprime. Funny thing to note though, Andoria is in actual fact not this gas giant, but rather one of its moons. There's a mention of Starbase 11. Kirk is trialed there in the original series. Pike is staying there in the menagerie. And we've also seen the Starbase pop up in Discovery Season 1. Lastly, in this one scene with Kolba and Stamets, we see these little drone things come clean up the mess hall. This is the first time we've seen something like this on screen, though it does seem logical that in the future we have flying Roombas doing all the cleaning work for us. Some have mentioned they look like the robots Reno built in Season 2, Episode 1. I don't know if they are, or if they just reuse the model, but anyway, there you go. That's it. One last thing actually about Talos 4 that I completely forgot to mention. It looks exactly like the remastered Talos that we have in the remastered version of The Cage. And there you go. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope you continue to enjoy the episodes of Season 2. As promised, I will review all of the episodes once I get back from my 5-week trip in New Zealand. If you want to know all about that, check out my previous video. I explain what's going on and I give a bit of a channel update. As usual, remember to like, subscribe, share with your friends, and live long and prosper.